One of the wonderful things about relationships, whether they be old or new or short-term or long-term, is that we believe that we have found someone that we are attracted to, and we hope that they feel the same way. We believe they are, at least, because they wouldn't be with us if they weren't. And they bring a certain something to our life that complements us. And out of that, we believe that we can meet each other's needs. We have these conversations, don't we? Well, I would be there for you, you would be there for me. If there was ever anything that you stood in the way of need of, I would fulfill that. And there's this understanding, this basis that that's what we do, is we meet each other's needs. And it becomes quite a challenge the longer you're in a relationship with somebody, right? Isn't that true? You find out that everything is not as simple as we had expected. We just took things for granted. And things happen sometimes, you have to admit. We sometimes feel like I'm doing everything I can to meet the other person's need, and yet they tell me I'm not doing that. It makes us feel bad. Or else, maybe you've wanted to meet a need of someone's, and they have found it in something or someone else. I don't mean anything wrong. I'm just saying it could be something completely innocent. But, you thought you were on the same page, and yet you feel like you've fallen short. So what this does is it bruises your ego. It causes jealousy and resentment. And it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. There are cases where people have overstepped their boundaries and have sought their needs fulfilled in ways that they shouldn't. And I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, the simple, innocent, everyday transactions that happen between people, but they don't always transpire like we think they would. And I've got a good story for you here that I found that exemplifies this and helps us to understand things maybe a little bit better. It's a beautiful story. It was actually a Reddit post of all things. Sometimes you actually find really good stuff on there. And this comes from, I guess, a group I joined or something called Casual Conversations. I had no idea I did, but I'm kind of glad that I'm kind of tapped into this. Anyway, the title to this post is called, "I Keep a Very Wholesome Secret from My Husband." I know when you first read that or hear that, it doesn't sound too good, does it? But listen to this. "My husband and I have a good relationship, and I am close with his family. He is a huge mama's boy, but in a healthy way. Like everyone, my husband sometimes goes through spells where he has a bad couple of days and needs some cheering up. When this happens, most of the time I can help him through it, but occasionally he just needs some extra support. He's been experiencing one of these spells recently. It happened because of some of the things involving his hometown, and after a day, I realized that he needed to talk to someone else, especially since I don't know most of the people involved. As I have for the last few years, I text my mother-in-law to let her know that he was having a rough time and could use a phone call. After I got home from work today, my husband and I were relaxing on the couch, watching TV, when I heard his phone ring. His voice immediately perked up, and I heard him chatting happily, then a little more reserved as he asked her for advice about the situation. After a while, my husband came back into the living room and said something along the lines of, 'Wow, that was Mom. She always seems to know when I'm upset and just what to say.' It makes me so happy to know that my mother-in-law and I conspiring together to cheer him up actually works. Watching him go from feeling down in the dumps to loved and protected is the absolute best feeling. If your cup is full enough, don't forget to go the extra mile to help someone today." At the end of this, she kind of added a postscript and said she had no idea this was going to blow up the way it did on here. And I understand why it did. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. I have to say here, first of all, this is a good woman. This is a really good wife. There are certain things that took place within this retelling that should signal something to each and every single one of us. She had built a relationship, a good one with her mother-in-law. And that's not That's not really something you see across the board. I would say it's not common, but maybe it's a little more common than I think. But you know, there's a lot of jokes made and a lot of stories told about people who cannot stand their in-laws, but she had a good relationship. She understood the closeness of her husband to his mother, and she did not get in the way of that. She actually utilized it to his benefit, not to hers. And that takes a rare kind of a person, I think. That's really the essence of a good relationship, is when you look out for the best interests of someone else, understanding that you may not always be able to fulfill all their needs. And really, if you stop and think about it logically and rationally, it's ridiculous to believe that we really could fulfill all of someone else's needs. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to fill some of their needs when you can, when it's reasonable. It would be wrong to say that you wouldn't. But we need to drop the expectation that we are someone else's all in all. It's absolutely ludicrous to say what Jerry Maguire said, "You complete me." Nobody else completes us completely. I mean, they just don't. And when we put that on someone else, and when we say, well, you're not meeting my needs, we become toxic, because we're in essence, we're manipulating them and we're putting too much pressure on them. When you realize that you can't meet all of someone else's needs, it's actually quite liberating. It might disturb you at first. You come to grips with it, and and then you just accept that you cannot be someone's everything at all times. And so she understood that he needed extra support. She went to someone else to help. It could have been a friend, but in this case, it was his mother. And there's a lot of people who don't like someone else getting in the way. Here's an example from my own life. More than half a lifetime ago for me, I was married to someone else. The marriage did not last long. A lot of it was probably due to my fault. But there, you know, soon after we got married, my wife at that time was spending a lot of time with her mother and her sister. Now, that really wasn't that uncommon. She did that a lot before we got married. But see, my mindset had changed, and in my mind, I was thinking, in my way of thinking, it was, oh, she should be spending more time with me. Now, people will argue all sorts of things when they hear this, but listen to me out on this. I grew jealous, and I grew resentful, and I made it known. And looking back now, I realize how immature that was. I was young, I was foolish, I was too self-assured. Okay, ask yourself, are you too self-assured in your position with somebody else? Because if you are, that could be a detriment to you. Her mother was a good woman. Her sister was a good woman. And there was no reason why she shouldn't have had some of her needs met by them. But yet I let it get in the way. Another time was when her and I were in her car, and I could sense that something was wrong with her car, and I mentioned it to her, and she said, I talked to my dad about it, and he's going to look at it. And my way of thinking, it was, why didn't you come talk to me about it? I'm the man, basically. Well, once again, that was really foolish, because it was very self-centered of me. Some of you might say to this, well, I would understand that. I would do the same thing. But understand, I know now, looking back, it was very self-centered. Her father was actually a lot better at things like that. And, you know, when your mind shifts into another gear, don't expect everyone else to do the same thing. You cannot meet all of someone else's needs, and nobody else should expect you to do that. So there's two sides, two ways of looking at this. And I think that there's a lot to be learned from this lady's example here. You know, just put your ego aside. Don't be crushed under the weight of it. You understand? I hope that's helped. You might be finding yourself in this position right now. You might be going through something where you feel like I'm trying to do this and that for her or for him, and it's just not working. I feel bad about it. Well, don't. If you've done your best, and it's obvious that you care, accept it. And if someone is putting that on you, telling you, you're not meeting my needs, I'm going somewhere else, consider yourself to have dodged a bullet. But these are just some of the things that I think you should contemplate and understand, because it's a real problem. I've probably done this more than once myself, but you try to get better, you try to do better over time. And I hope that by hearing this video today or listening to it, that it's made a difference. All right? Share this with others and give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Like the video if it's resonated with you. Tap the notification bell, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and consider donating to the channel. You don't have to, but I always appreciate those who do, and I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. And I hope to see you on the next one. In the meantime, be wise.